Hello guys, welcome to Chemistry of Drugs. Today we will discuss about the toxicity of diethylene glycol and ethylene glycol. So last year in October, we got a news that 70 Gambian children have died due to ingestion of toxic cough syrup made by Indian pharmaceutical. And after 2 months in December, 18 kids in Uzbekistan also have died due to Indian syrup. So these all are being claimed by the individual government and who has also made an alert regarding these two incidents. So the Gambian government claimed that the cough syrup made by Indian pharmaceutical contained diethylene glycol and ethylene glycol. So diethylene glycol and ethylene glycol are toxic to human and could be fatal if consumed. Okay, but later they said that no confirmation India made cough syrup killed 70 kids. So it's just a claimed by this government and who. Okay, so today we will discuss about the basic chemistry behind ethylene glycol and diethylene glycol toxicity. Let's dive into it. First, we need to see the structure of ethylene glycol and diethylene glycol. The structure of ethylene glycol is OH, CH2, CH2, OH. And diethylene glycol is OH, CH2, CH2, O, CH2, CH2, OH. Okay, so these two alcohol, ethylene glycol and diethylene glycol, is used in spurious cough syrup, which create toxicity. So instead of using ethylene glycol and diethylene glycol, manufacturers should use glycerol in their cough syrup. Okay, so the glycerol structure is OH, OH, and OH. This is glycerol. To know the toxicity of ethylene glycol and diethylene glycol, we need to study the metabolic pathway of these two alcohol. Beside that, we will also see metabolic pathway of glycerol so that we can compare that why ethylene glycol and diethylene glycol has toxic effect but glycerol does not have any toxic effect on human body. Before moving to the metabolic pathway of diethylene glycol and ethylene glycol, we need to study the metabolic pathway of simple alcohol like methanol and ethanol. Now we will see metabolic pathway of methanol and ethanol. So in our liver, methanol and ethanol both has a simple and easy oxidative pathway which can ultimately form to some acid. So first methanol is converted to formaldehyde, then it converted to formic acid, and ethanol is converted to acetaldehyde and then converted to acetic acid. Here the question is this formic acid and this acetic acid, which does have the most toxic effect? Formic acid has the most toxic effect because formic acid create metabolic acidosis. But acetic acid does not create this kind of acidosis because acetic acid further converted to acetyl-CoA by enzyme thiokinase. This acetyl-CoA can be further utilized in other biochemical pathway. Thus, metabolic pathway of methanol and ethanol indicate that methanol has toxic effect which form formic acid and ethanol formed acetyl-CoA which can be used in biochemical pathway. This formic acid is the culprit of the methanol toxicity which create toxic effect in our eye. So the common enzyme which convert this alcohol to aldehyde is alcohol dehydrogenase, and this aldehyde to acid is aldehyde dehydrogenase. So these two enzymes are very much important in metabolism of any alcohol. Now we will move to metabolic pathway of ethylene glycol and diethylene glycol. So ethylene glycol and diethylene glycol both follows the same metabolic pathway as before we have seen in methanol and ethanol. Here ethylene glycol will convert to corresponding aldehyde and finally oxalic acid, and diethylene glycol through a successive oxidation in liver will convert to diglycolic acid. This oxalic acid create complex with calcium ion and form calcium oxalate. So calcium oxalate. This calcium oxalate deposit in proximal convoluted tubule of kidney and create nephrotoxicity. So this is the main reason why ethylene glycol create toxicity. So nephrotoxicity is the major reason of children death in ethylene glycol toxicity. Now comes to diethylene glycol. Diethylene glycol converted to diglycolic acid, which accumulate in brain and kidney. So here also we have observed the same scenario like ethylene glycol. Now the question comes, instead of ethylene glycol and diethylene glycol, manufacturers should use glycerol. So why glycerol doesn't have any toxic effect? We'll see. So glycerol will convert to glyceraldehyde and glycolic acid like other alcohol. This glycolic acid further convert to 3-phosphoglyceric acid and 2-phosphoglyceric acid. Okay, the enzyme is 3 kinase and 2 kinase. This 3-phosphoglyceric acid and 2-phosphoglyceric acid will convert it to some other metabolite which can be used in our regular biochemical pathway, like 3-phosphoglyceric acid will convert to 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate, which will further convert to glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, and 2-phosphoglyceric acid will convert to phosphoenol pyruvate, which can be used in further other biochemical pathway like glycolysis. Besides that, glycerol is a breakdown product of triglyceride which is present in our body, and glyceraldehyde is a breakdown product of fructose which is also present in our body. So that is why glycerol doesn't have any toxic effect, because all other metabolite of glycerol is somewhat used in other biochemical pathway which is regular in our human body. But in case of ethylene glycol, diethylene glycol and methanol, the formation of the acid creates the major toxic effect in human body, which either affect the eye like methanol or either affect the brain or kidney and create nephrotoxicity. That is the main reason for this diethylene glycol and ethylene glycol toxicity in Gambia and Uzbekistan. So thank you so much for your valuable time. I think you have now understand the basic chemistry behind the diethylene glycol and ethylene glycol toxicity. Thank you.